Known for its hula dances, lei garlands, and volcanic fruit drinks, Hawaii is that tropical slice of America reserved for romantic getaways and welcoming beachside culture. While this idyllic view of the islands makes it great for an exotic vacation, the long origin of the Aloha state is far less pristine and cheery. Today, we're going to look at how the U.S. has destroyed Hawaiian culture. First populated in 400 CE by Polynesian explorers, Hawaii's native inhabitants used their farming and fishing skills to build a working monarchy. But after the introduction of European settlers, their eventual journey to statehood succeeded 240 years of hostile takeovers and displacement comparable to the Native American Trail of Tears. So how exactly did outside influences lead to the destruction of Hawaiian culture? Let's look at the timeline that turned this quiet island into an all-encompassing tourist destination. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. The first recorded instance of Europeans visiting Hawaii was in 1778 when Captain James Cook made landfall on the HMS Resolution. Things went better than expected, and he was initially welcomed as a deity thanks to his arrival coinciding with a festival of worship for the Polynesian god Lono. But the relationship turned hostile when a small boat went missing from his ship. Cook inflamed tensions by kidnapping the elderly island king in retribution. Cook attempted to retreat to the sea, only to be met with bad weather and forced back on the island. Once ashore, Cook and his crew met with their demise at the hands of an angry mob of islanders. In March 1820, a group of Protestant missionaries arrived in Hawaii to spread their faith, effectively opening the floodgates for other religious groups to follow. While many of the natives adopted these foreign beliefs, the addition of churches and schools introduced an upper class of white settlers. It was around this same time that whalers also began to inhabit the islands, their unrefined lifestyle of gambling and prostitutes completely clashing with the newly established class of religious elite. Along with creating a new power struggle on the islands, these uninvited guests brought in unfamiliar foods, venereal diseases, and ailments such as smallpox and measles. By 1853, roughly 230,000 native Hawaiians had died as a result. By the early 1800s, Hawaii had united their 8 islands into a single kingdom under the rule of King Kamehameha I. At the same time, native residents began to sign free trade agreements with outside visitors, giving over much of their land to European-run sugar plantations. These non-native residents were generally against the established monarchy, and when the new King David Kalakaua took power in 1874, they became further threatened by his attempts to reduce the outside power of the missionary party. Their solution was to form the Hawaiian League, a group that forcefully enacted a new constitution designed to redistribute power from the king to a self-appointed white legislature. Called the Bayonet Constitution, this new set of laws took away the voting rights for native Hawaiians who did not have money or land. The change created an imbalance toward the white elite, as many native Hawaiians had lost their land ownership to the sugar industry. Despite making up only 5% of the population, plantation owners were quickly becoming the most powerful residents of Hawaii. But when Congress passed the McKinley Tariff, sugar sales plummeted. In order to see profits, plantation owners would have to push the United States to annex Hawaii. After his death in 1891, King Kalakaua was replaced by his sister Liliuokalani. Like her brother before, Liliuokalani attempted to restore power by returning voting rights to her native Hawaiians, only to be thwarted by the constitutionally empowered white legislature. Several years later, a group of businessmen in the pineapple and sugar industry would retaliate by forming a committee and staging a U.S. military-supported coup of Liliuokalani's rule. As the coup escalated, the United States sent more than 120 Marines to fight alongside the 1,000 insurgents on the island. In the midst of the confusion, the committee members simply stormed the government building and announced their victory. Their new leader? Committee member Sanford B. Dole, whose family would go on to found Dole Foods. His first order of business was to push annexation of the territory and form the independent Republic of Hawaii. Despite the objections of the native Hawaiians, neither the former Queen Liliuokalani or President Grover Cleveland resisted the power shift in order to avoid further bloodshed. Along with losing many lives, this resulted in the arrest and charges of treason against Liliuokalani. Finally, after being of strategic importance during the Spanish-American War, Hawaii was officially annexed by Congress in 1898. When the first European landed in Hawaii, the native language had no written form. This caused missionaries to establish a 13-letter alphabet based on observed sounds of the native language. For a while, this was the most common form of communication of the islands. However, after Hawaii was annexed, the United States banned the Hawaiian language from any government building or school. This resulted in the first official Hawaiian alphabet being forgotten for many future generations. The good news is that thanks to later efforts in the 1970s, the Hawaiian tongue made a resurgence and is once again the state's official language. One ill-fated attempt to restore the damage done by plantation owners was the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act of 1921, which allowed residents of over 50% Native Hawaiian heritage to lease areas totaling over 200,000 acres of land for only $1. While created with the intent to help the impoverished Native residents, property leasers made a deal with lawmakers to create loopholes in the bill that rerouted land meant for Hawaiian homes to instead be used for government purposes. The rest of the land proved to be both underdeveloped and inaccessible, as any cost of maintenance would go to the residents. On top of this oversight, by 1999, there were still more than 29,000 Native Hawaiians on the waiting list to receive their land. After the December 7th attack on Pearl Harbor, the National Guard placed the islands of Hawaii under martial law. Having yet to become a state, many in the government distrusted Native Hawaiians and feared further attacks from Japanese citizens. This created a blanket of curfews, military-issued IDs, and even censorship of incoming mail and information. Citizens of Japanese heritage were sent to internment camps, while many others were forced to dig bomb shelters. This lasted until 1944, when the threat was deemed minimal and martial law was lifted. These few years of government rule would later be deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. During this same time, the military evacuated the entire island of Kaha'olove, its population of ranchers and farmers displaced for bomb testing and nuclear drills. Viewed by many Native Hawaiians as sacred, the island's cliffs were bombarded with missiles and its land scorched with nuclear TNT to simulate the effects of an atomic blast. Needless to say, this act was viewed as sacrilegious, and so in 1953, President Eisenhower passed a bill returning the land to Native people once the military completed their weapons testing, which didn't actually happen until the 1990s. To this day, 25% of the island remains uninhabitable. The origin of Hawaii's tourism industry seems downright serendipitous. Having just gotten out of World War II, the islands were made an official state just as commercial flight began to grow in popularity. America's budding middle class needed a place to relax, and so began the fast transition from sugar plantations to tourist destinations. Much like the industry before it, tourism quickly became a problem for Hawaii's native residents. Areas once considered sacred were being replaced with golf courses and fancy resorts. As wealthy tourists and landowners moved in, the cost of living rose, forcing even more residents out of their homes. One particularly egregious example was in 2014 when Mark Zuckerberg purchased 700 acres from the island of Kauai, only to learn that much of his purchase was already inherited to Native Hawaiians. The Facebook founder attempted to sue the landowners and force them to sell their property at auction, a strategy ultimately dropped after the unsurprisingly ungreat PR. As of 2017, nearly 40% of Native Hawaiians struggle with obesity and a disproportionately high rate of diabetes. One theorized cause is that the genetic traits once allowing their ancestors to travel long periods without food have turned deadly in a modern world of sugar and carbs. Another link to poor diet is the fact that Native Hawaiians are some of the most impoverished citizens in the country. One 2017 study finding that they make up over 40% of the homeless population in their state. So even though the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act specifically set aside land, many struggling Native residents simply can't afford the upkeep or commute to the wealthier urbanized areas in which they work. Considering everything you've just watched, it's no surprise Congress formally apologized to Hawaii in 1993 for their part in overthrowing the original monarchy. In an effort to further heal relations, in 2000, a Hawaiian senator named Daniel Akaka created the Native Hawaiian Government Reorganization Act, a bill designed to give Native Hawaiians the same rights as Native Americans and Native Alaskans. While it seemed like a no-brainer, Senator Akaka would spend the next 18 years attempting to get the bill through until his death in 2018. The Native Hawaiian Government Reorganization Act never received enough votes to become law, and so Native Hawaiians remain unable to have the same benefits as other indigenous residents of the United States, such as the right to self-govern or repossess land once seized by the government. Kind of unfair, isn't it? Well, that's it for this one, but you're so lucky because we have more videos for you to watch. So do yourself a favor, click on these and experience some of our weird history.